friends, it's Julie Norman, and today we're going to talk about planning with a chronic illness. And if you've seen my videos before, you know that I've been dealing with this, and it was actually when I started with being sick is when I started to plan more, and not only planning but also with journaling and self-care. 1 year ago tomorrow is the anniversary of when I had cancer surgery. And it was pretty much a life-changing event, which, you know, when you get that diagnosis of cancer, it's pretty big. And if everything's okay now, it was 100% successful so far. Although for the first 5 years, they always have to do a lot of checkups. But during the recovery, I started to have some odd symptoms. A lot of joint pain, a lot of, weird, just stuff. And looking back at the last few years and maybe longer, there were other symptoms too, but I just, thought it was getting older or just my body, I'm, not being fit and stuff like that. So in a nutshell, since I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder with some tests in February of this year, along the year, with more tests and more appointments, I have right now 4 autoimmune issues. The 4 are rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, which is, I believe, the dry everything, Raynaud's, which is extreme sensitivity to cold. Boy, am I glad I don't live in Minnesota anymore. And the final one that I was diagnosed with recently was type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune issue. And the funny thing is that was probably the first one that I had, because I was misdiagnosed with type 2 a few years ago, and it was actually not type 2, it's type 1. But that's a whole nother story. So those are the 4 things that I deal with. And, if the pandemic wasn't weird enough, let's throw in a few diseases and deal with that. And autoimmune diseases follow one another. So, a few years ago I had type 1 diabetes, and then, which I didn't know was autoimmune, and then after that the other 3 followed along. And it's possible to have more, but let's just deal with what I know for now. And a side note, that it takes an average of 3 to 5 years for somebody to be diagnosed with autoimmune issues. And frankly, my rheumatologist didn't believe me when I went in February. He was skeptical that I had anything, as if my debilitating joint pain was all in my head. So there's a lot of education and stuff that needs to be done still with that. That's just a side note. And also the best thing that I've done for myself, besides having some extra meds, is diet. And I'm going to be doing the AIP autoimmune protocol diet starting after Christmas. So that'll be another thing that you'll see me doing. Now let's go back to the subject. So these are the chronic diseases, and you may have something else. There's so many out there. The thing about chronic diseases is you don't recover for them like a cold or a flu, or even, you can recover from cancer, which, okay, some people say cancer is an autoimmune issue too, which is true. It would technically classify that. But these autoimmune things, you don't recover, but you might have remission. So it is something that you deal with all the time, and sometimes, some days you wake up and you're fine, or you're okay, you're functional, and some days you wake up and you just want to go back to bed and nothing's going to happen that day, or very little. So I'm going to share with you some tips that I have learned through the almost year, because of course my diagnosis really started in February, but the surgery that kind of, I think, triggered some of the autoimmune stuff started tomorrow. A year ago. First of all, how do you plan when you don't know what the next day is going to hold physically for your body? And I am still learning, but these are the tips that I have learned so far. And one thing to think about is there is something called the spoon theory. So think about your energy as a set of spoons. And there is, videos on this too. But think, I only have, let's say I have 6 spoons today. And let's say taking a shower takes 1 spoon. Let's say, going to work takes 2 or 3 spoons. Just to say 3 spoons, because it's a big thing. Let's say taking the dog out for the walk takes another spoon. Now I only have 1 spoon left. What am I going to do with that spoon? So it's units of energy, kind of visible with spoons, that I only have this much energy in a day, and maybe I have a flare-up, so maybe I only have 4 spoons today. Or maybe I have a really good day and have more spoons that I can add to. So it is your energy and your ability to function is limited, as in you use them up. And as a planner, I could use pens maybe, or pencils as an illustration. But a lot of people talk about the spoon theory. So that's what the spoon theory is. It's basically, I have this much that I can do in a day. What am I going to scoop up in each spoon and do? And that is a consideration, especially with chronic illness. But let's get into the 7, I might have 7 tips here. Okay, first of all, you scale back on your commitments. You question everything that you're committed to. I would say take out your journal and make a list of all the things that you're committed to. Maybe at the top it's your family, your job, maybe it's your pets, all of those things. Perhaps you're a caretaker, perhaps you have a volunteer, maybe you coach something. Write down everything that you do and what you're committed to, and then also list out things like, if you're the one responsible for cooking, if you're responsible for cleaning the house, if you're responsible, for watching your neighbor's cat or something. Whatever it is, all those things that would take up these, when you take up a unit of your spoon, all of those things. And maybe, you are, you attend a Bible study, or you have a group that you go to. Everything that you're committed to doing, write it all down. And now question everything on that list. There are some things you can't question because, your family, your spouse, your kids, your parents, whatever, they're not going to, most of the time, you can't kick them out of the house, especially, but okay, let's not get into that. So there might be times when, if you're responsible for cooking, do you really have to be the one responsible? Would somebody else be able to do that? Or if you're volunteering, do you really have to be that high in the responsibility? So question everything. And when you're doing this, think about not feeling guilt for phasing out of some of them, because you have to take care of yourself and the limited amount of energy that you have. Because if you don't, you're going to have no spoons. If you keep depleting, trying to use up more spoons every day than you have, you're probably going to have a setback. And then you're not going to be able to help anybody. So that's the first one. Now the second one is to schedule the firm dates first. And that's what I do here in my calendar. So I have, here is February next year, for example. There's nothing there, of course. But set up your firm dates. I mean, Valentine's is a firm date. Maybe you want to go out for Valentine's. Maybe have a doctor's appointment. Maybe there are some practices that you have to go to. And set up the firm dates first. Things that you can't negotiate after you have journaled and figured out what you can actually do and way to scale down everything. Then you find out your firm dates. The things that you have to do. And all the while, think about the main goal is to make things easy on yourself, to be gentle to yourself, which is another point. For example, Tuesdays, I have a knitting group I go to in the afternoons, and I really make it a priority because it's my only social time, really consistent social time away from my husband, because we need that time. And I really try to make sure I go. There's very little times where I can't. But because I do that, then I try not to have anything big going on Monday, because if I overdo it on Monday, I'm going to be tired on Tuesday and I'm going to be worn out. I know sometimes when you have a daily job you have to go to, it's really hard. So maybe you have to scale back on anything else besides your job, because that is very important. Right now I'm in between jobs, so I'm transitioning out of the rep business and into some other things. So I am fortunate to be able to have a little time at home during the pandemic. Okay, number 3. Stay away from strict planning, such as the hourly setups. So I'm going to just pull up my Silk & Sonder here. And here is the Silk & Sonder schedule. It's a vertical. And there are planners where they will put an hour timeline along here and say at 7 o'clock I'm going to be up and ready to go, and 8 o'clock I'm out the door and eating breakfast and out the door, and 9 o'clock I'm blah blah, So and maybe at 2 o'clock I'm grocery shopping, or 3 o'clock I'm home. So it's all rigid and set up. Now if you set yourself up like that, and maybe at 1 o'clock, or no, let's say 10 o'clock, you have a flare-up and all of a sudden you're exhausted or you can't move your muscles or whatever is happening, then there's going to be an hour or two or here where you're going to fall behind. So stay away from the strict guidelines. Instead, you could maybe try something like the time blocking. Maybe you say, early to mid-morning, mid to late morning, lunchtime, early afternoon, and just do a chunk of time instead of the strict, I have to do this by this time, because you're going to set yourself up to fail if you do that. For those of us who can't stick to a strict guideline, do not do that. Your energy is limited, so make it count. And also think, do I really need to do all that today? And that's another point here too. So number 4, I've referred to this before, but be gentle to yourself. Be okay with scaling back. And you might feel frustrated. I have felt frustrated that I'm not able to do what I used to do a year ago before all this stuff happened. And I've had, tears and frustration and anger that I physically, cannot do the knitting and the spinning as much as I used to. I remember walking through the mall one day, which I went to 2 stores, and I was walking through the mall, and all of a sudden I was just totally exhausted. I'm like, what in the world? And this was before the real diagnosis, and I'm like, this is not right. The life becomes slower, and be okay with that. And there are benefits to that too, which it could be a whole nother video. Benefits of slowing your life down. Write encouragement to yourself, and that is why when I write during my mornings, I do that. Now, I showed you before that I start a little bit that says, "Good morning, beloved. Today is a beautiful day. You'll focus on God and His purpose for you." And so on last Friday, I did it a little bit more, and it's good morning. I was feeling really frustrated. Good morning, beloved. It's okay to wake up achy and tired. It's okay to need to change plans due to your body's fluctuating pain. God loves you at all times. You're not a failure. Remember that. This is something that's important. You're not a failure because your body is failing you. You are not a lazy good-for-nothing, a lie-about person. You are a child of God, dearly loved, and made this way for His good purpose. So that is an example of something that I was just writing out my good morning love note to myself, and that all just came out, and it was like, wow, yeah, this is something to refer back to. Be gentle to yourself. Remember, it's not my fault. It's not your fault that your body is doing these things. It is something, maybe it's hereditary, environmental. Maybe a little bit can be part of us, but there's people who do the same things as we do, day in and day out, and they're perfectly fine. They'll go run a marathon, and without question, or whatever, or 5K, or so much more. Maybe it seems that they can physically do double what we do. But just be gentle with yourself. You're not a failure if you can't get and do what you used to do or what other people do, and don't compare yourself. Those to-do lists. Now let's think about the to-do list. Now that is something that can catch us up, because I went and I wrote out, I have a list of to-dos I'm not going to show you, which are kind of long. All the things that I wanted to get done last week, and I got done 5 of them. But I don't want to forget what they are, so that's why I write them out. So what do we do with that? Now I'm going to tell you, again, we slow it down, we scale it back. Only do 1 to 3 things in a day. Now this is my today, which, when you see this is going to be yesterday. This is what I have planned today. I start my day, I was able to start my day nicely because I have some energy today. And now I'm doing my script, and I'm recording my video, and then I have to check laundry. But I only allow myself 1 to 3, I did add an extra, items to do each day. It's not like I don't need to do more stuff. This is not overwhelming. When it gets to the point when your to-do list is overwhelming, that's when you need to scale it back. Now, I could accomplish all of these, and then I might feel like I can do more, which is perfectly fine. But if I wrote down a list of 20 things I wanted to do every day, and I only got done 2 or 3, then I will feel like a failure. I will feel like I'll have guilt from it. Going back to that be gentle with yourself aspect. So that is why I only try to list 1 to 3 things, the top 3 things. And sometimes, depending on your state, maybe you can only do 1 thing a day, just that 1 thing. That is why scaling back, the number 1 thing, is so important, so you have less to do. And question everything. Do you really need to do everything on that list? Do you really need to have all those commitments? So as you go, as you figure this out, you probably edit it as you go and find out what you have the energy for. Planners are here, I believe, to help us to track what we need to do and to encourage us. And there are tools to help us along the journey. So if you come to your planner and you see all these things that are not fun and that you just have to do and you feel guilt or you feel overwhelmed, that's not right. You need to rethink it, question everything, and go back and start again. And it's okay. Every day is a fresh new day. Okay, you turn the page and it's fresh and new. So you can always start over the next day or even today. Okay, number 6. Are you a scripter like me? And yeah, I did refer to the fact that I might be phasing out the word scripting, and that's another video that I'm still percolating on. But those who like to write out the day in sentences and not as a list is basically what it is. Sentences and why we're doing this. To do this, it takes a little time, and because things can change, you don't want to do this more than a day or so ahead of time. Now, that is why I have my week at a glance, such as this. Here's November. I want to make sure it's election day that day. So I have this set up where it's going to be my rough draft for the day. I don't really have much going on. Okay, here we go. Here's a couple things for next week. I just want to remember, or this week actually, that I have a Toyota appointment. I want to contact a friend. There's a bazaar to go to, perhaps. We'll see how the COVID numbers are. But just kind of to set up the notes of here. And I even added a little here fold out where it's kind of, it's like a time blocking of what I want to do during what times. So that is kind of another video. But that's why I set up this, so that when I go to script or write out my day, that I know what I want to have on there, so I don't have to think about it and just kind of think, oh, come up with something. So don't do it too far ahead of time, because you could wake up, I could have written this last night and woke up in pain or fogginess or whatever, and then I wouldn't be able to accomplish a lot of these things. So that is why you want to wait to do something like that, unless you like to change things up and you have a system for that. So take it 1 step at a time. Now my 7th tip is, as planners, we plan. So this is my wellness log. And you've seen this before, and I'm not going to open up too much, but I will show you my cover page. And I did this just writing out of frustration one day. I'll read it to you. I will not let this hold me back. I will not use this as a crutch or an easy way out of the hard things. I will find blessing in this. God made me this way. Who am I to be ungrateful, to reject what He allows in my life? God and I are stronger than this. He already has a plan to bless me and to prosper me and Doug, my husband, through this. I only have to take each step in sync with Him. He is my help, my refuge. And this is important. It is 1 step at a time, 1 moment, maybe 1 hour, 1 day. Depending on what you're dealing with chronically, you might be able to go week from week, or for me it's day to day on what can happen physically to me. So I have this is part of being gentle to myself. I have this in the front, so I will have it before me and remember. And here's my wellness tab, has what I have issue with, my numbers for my doctors, and my meds and those things. Appointment notes are when I go to the appointment and I write notes of what they say to me. They have started making printouts of stuff, but it's so long that all I really need is maybe a paragraph of what changed. Wellness log, and that is like, I don't really do that much right now, but it's how I'm feeling, maybe what I ate, and my symptom tracker. I probably should get back into that, but when I do the autoimmune protocol, I will definitely be doing the wellness log so I can see what's really happening. As a planner, this is so important, because if you have it all in one spot, if you're having a bad day and you can't remember the name of this doctor or where this clinic was, or what did they say at the last appointment. You can just pull it out, and you don't have to have it in your head. It can free up a spoon of energy for you so that you can maybe have an extra spoon, because all you had to do is open your planner up and look it up. You didn't have to go back and look in your notes, look at your health, your emails or whatever. It just makes it easier. And if you have somebody who's helping you, maybe have another one of care of what to do in emergency or whatever, or what do I need to be done. So that is important, I think, as a planning tool. The last one is a bonus one, and that one, I'm just going to pull this out so you have something pretty to look at. But that one is a lifestyle tip that I'm going to share with you. And that is, I really enjoy letting the machines do the work for me, because the sound of the dishwasher going, it's really easy, just a little at a time, just step by step. Maybe I just put, glasses and plates in there as time. I don't have to do this long, maybe it takes 15-20 minutes of dishes. All I do is maybe a minute of loading here and there, and then all of a sudden it washes for me. And then when I have time, maybe I'll unload a little bit by little bit. So it helps to break things down. And another thing is, I purchased a robotic vacuum at a garage sale. I love a good bargain. It's not the top of the line one, but it works. And yeah, I do have to rescue it a few times, but I like the fact that it will vacuum up the worst of the pet hair and the worst of the stuff. I still have to go back and vacuum too, but do a good thorough vacuum. But, through those days that I just can't function well, it's good to know that all I have to do is push a few buttons and things happen. And, that includes the washer and the dryer. We take it for granted that we just push a button and it washes and it dries. But that's a pretty amazing thing, too, because 100 years ago that wouldn't have happened. Let the machines do the work. Let other people help you to do things. And break it up bit by bit. So there's my lifestyle tip for you. So I thank you for watching, and I know that maybe not all of you have a chronic illness, but perhaps that it helps you, and even the philosophy of doing it bit by bit. And in your life, if you are overwhelmed with life, it is also a good thing to kind of step back, scale it down, be gentle with yourself, and just do step by step. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a joyful day. Okay, friends, it's P.S. postscript time, and we're going back to yarn. I know we've seen a lot of this lately, but that's what's going on with me. This is what I did in 1 week with the Spin Together weekly competition that I mentioned last week. And it was 1 week to spin as much as you could, and I chose to spin on a spindle. You can see the video of the postscript that I have. And that's what I accomplished. And I'll be honest here, I probably pushed myself too hard. I know we just talked about chronic illness, but I didn't want to let the team down, because we spun in teams virtually, of course. And I just didn't want to, spindle itself is a lot slower than a spinning wheel. So I pushed myself, and I had 2 nights where I think it was because of the spinning so much that I had so much muscle aches that kept me awake a little bit longer than it should have. But let me tell you how much yardage I spun. This guy was first, and he is 148 yards. This one was next, and this was 167 yards, and these are 2 plies. And this one here is 165 yards. So that is what I accomplished for the week, and I did enjoy getting back into spinning, but like I said in my video today, I have to take it smaller steps now, because it did wear out my body and my joints a bit, and I need to have time to do other things too. So that is my update from that, and I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you have a joyful day.